Hello and welcome. I'm Carol DeChaine, your intuitive spiritual guide for practical matters, Marconics multidimensional energy practitioner, and I am also your life coach. Today, I want to talk about when to let go. Last month, I talked about how to say goodbye, but today it's when do you do it? When do you decide? Well, there's a number of ways that you can tell. If every time you see someone, you feel kind of anxious and tight and like you don't want to see them, or you see their name come up on your call waiting and you go, no, I don't want to see them. No, 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 no. Those are obvious signs. But sometimes you look at them and you realize that every time you're around them, you gossip, you complain, you're negative all the time because there's something about them that pulls that vibration of you down into that feeling. Whether it's someone that asks you a question about a specific thing that always makes you speak negative, or whether it's somebody that just is always down in the dumps and complaining themselves, and you feel yourself being pulled down into it, whether it's complaining or talking negative about someone else, or whatever it may be, you feel like it's not a good fit, whether it's always or just anymore, because maybe you've shifted enough so that that person doesn't resonate with you anymore. So you need to say, is it time? And how do I let this person go? So by all means, take a look at how your relationships are. Start with relationships, because sometimes you kind of go, oh, do I want to let this person go? And you don't, maybe it doesn't even occur to you, you can. Because maybe it's somebody you don't let them go 100%, but you pull back. So if it's a family member, you may not be able to leave them totally. You may have to go ahead and go, all right, how do I do this? I'm not going to respond to them all the time. I'm not going to give in to their neediness if they have neediness, but maybe I'll always change the subject when they get negative. See what happens. Maybe if I go more positive and I consciously think about it, then I can shift them away and then I can still have a relationship with them. Or maybe you just decide, I can't be done because of who it is, but let me decide this is going to be better for me, my health, my well being, my mental stability if I'm not around them all the time. So you can distance yourself to a certain extent without having to cut them off totally. If they're a mother-in-law, which those poor people always get the bad rep. But I mean, it could be a sibling, it could be maybe a cousin or somebody that you used to talk to all the time that you just feel like, I think it's time. They don't make me feel good about myself. I don't feel good when I'm with them. And that's really the best way to tell when it's time to let someone go. Do you feel good about yourself when you're with them? Do they bring out the best in you? Or do you feel like you just go right down into the toilet every time you're around them? You get negative, you're floating around in the stuff, going, I don't like me. And when you get home, you're either exhausted, that's another way to tell. If you're always exhausted every time you leave that person, or you're thinking, why did I let myself talk like that again? And you realize you do it all the time you're around that person, that may be the time to let them go. Now, these are about people, but when do you let situations go? Maybe a job, or where you're living, or maybe it's time to let go of your clunker of a car. When do you let those things go? Well, I mean, like I said before, if you're all tensed up, I had one job I went to that I was so tense, I think my toes were curling and tightening up. I really hated it. And so I finally got to the point where I went, I can't take this anymore. Every time I go, I'm like this. I hate this. And so I finally said, I never talked to them about having an issue. I just walked in and said, I'm done, I'm leaving. And I never went back. It was a job you didn't have to give a 2 weeks notice to because it was a sales sort of job. But I walked in and I went, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. I hate it. I don't feel good. I just can't do it. And they were like, what? Like, no, I just can't. And they were shocked, but I just went, I don't care. This is my time. I need to let this go. And I immediately found another different type of job like the kind I used to have, which was more legal secretarial. But I mean, I looked at it and went, I just can't, for my own health, keep on with the situation. And you may find the same thing. I mean, maybe you're living somewhere that's unsafe and it makes you very nervous to go home. You don't feel comfortable. It's not your safe haven. And maybe when you're inside the door, you're okay. But maybe outside, you're not. Maybe that's when it's time to let that situation go. If you're living with someone, as long as you don't own the place, it's pretty easy to get out and leave if you don't have a long-term lease. So think about that. Think about the situations in your life and the people in your life that you're not really ready to let go, maybe, but you're not sure. And if you are ready, make sure that you do it with kindness when you do let go, that you find a way to do it that works for you, or just step back a bit if you can't let it go totally, and just find a way to be kind, but not to always be in their presence if that's something that is what's disturbing you. I hope that this has helped you today to know when it's time to let go. I find usually either your body will tell you because it gets tight, or your mind will go in circles trying to decide if it's time. And that usually means it's pretty close to time. You might want to make it, make a last ditch effort to see if there's a little bit more, if you really care about the person before you 100% let them go. But if you aren't sure how much to let them go, think about your life without them, with them. If there's any extenuating circumstances like relatives, children, parents, if there's any of those kinds of things, or a friend that is always in need, know that, especially a friend or a person, if you're letting go of a spouse and divorcing them, if they're in need, they'll find someone else to help them. It's not always 100% up to you. If you're kind in the way you let go of them, they may be terribly hurt. But ultimately, if you weren't there for them and you didn't want to be there for them, it's the kindest thing to do. When you, not if you only one time feel that way, but if you are feeling that way 100% of the time and it goes on for a bit and you go, I'm just not the right person. They're not the right person for me, which makes me the wrong person for them. It's not just one way, especially if you can't be there for them. And that's something that you have to learn as you go through. How and when do you do it? And when is important, because you need to decide how much distance you want and what's best for you. And then do it with kindness. Thank you for joining me here today. And again, my name is Carol DeChaine. Go ahead and subscribe to my YouTube channel, and then click on the bell notification if you'd like to see when other videos come out. Through the end of the year, I'm having 2 every week, but after that, I'm going to cut it down to 1, more than likely, or when the spirit moves me, because it takes so much time to do these. But I do love to be able to connect to you, and I'd love to hear from you. By all means, if you want to connect, you can go to my website and contact me through there, or go to carol@connecttojoy.com. I should say at carol@connecttojoy.com. Yes, there we go. And by all means, too, if you want to know more about life coaching, about Marconics, multidimensional energy, or my podcast, which is called also Connect to Joy, you can go to my website and everything is on there. And that's connect2joy.com. Until next week, please, by all means, don't question yourself too much. Give yourself the kindness that you need as well to decide when it's time to let go of someone, because you are already enough to have that peaceful and joyful life that you desire.